one problem which may blur the situation, render it unclear, is that Egypt, Tunisia, and all these countries are, okay, not totally authoritarian, but nonetheless maybe non-democratic. So this may give rise to the illusion that the problem was just some local, corrupted, non-democratic people, so we get rid of these people and we will have a thriving democracy economy. What is so brilliant and important is that the same formula is repeated in European countries where we do have formal democracy. Now, I'm not saying democracy has to go, but I'm saying something which should worry precisely the sincere Democrats, which is that, first, obviously, the multi-party democratic system that we have no longer can adequately represent or capture the level of social discontent. The example that I always like to quote, I was in England years ago, the last elections that New Labour still won. I remember 2 weeks before election, there was a big show on BBC with hundreds of thousands of votes from people observing. They were selecting the most hated person in the United Kingdom. Tony Blair won by large majority. 2 weeks later, he won general elections. What does this mean? It means clearly that people did feel a certain dissatisfaction, which canalized itself into the hatred against Tony Blair, but somehow they felt that this dissatisfaction cannot be represented in their political choice. And we shouldn't play with this, because then, as the result of this, we get this irrational, apparently irrational outbursts like car burnings in France, where you get this pure protest without any clear program. The second dangerous thing that I always like to repeat, what is happening now in China, in Singapore, and so on, is something which should give us to think. In what sense? Now let's first recognize that to the devil what belongs to the devil, the good thing. Till now, even if capitalism needed here and there 20 years of dictatorship, in the long term, after a decade or so of dictatorship, when things started to move, as a rule, capitalism did always engender a demand for freedom, democracy, and so on. And let me be very clear. I think events clearly point in a certain direction which should worry us, that this eternal marriage between democracy and capitalism is approaching divorce. That is to say, the most efficient forms of capitalism today, Singapore, Malaysia, China, are what? This is capitalism in a way even more dynamic, productive, destructive in the capitalist sense movement. So as capitalism, it functions perfectly without democracy. And I don't believe, I'm not so sure as some of my liberal, not friends, I don't have liberal friends, acquaintances, who think, oh, give them 10 years, another Tiananmen. Well, maybe not. I think it's something much more ominous at work. So again, this divorce between capitalism and democracy. So, and we see signs in the West. Of course, let's not be naive here. It will not be the old fascist authoritarianism. I think that one of the directions, not universal, cannot be universalized, can be like, this is for me the interest of the phenomenon Berlusconi, an openly obscene functioning of power. The guy plays ridiculous jokes, makes fun of himself, but the system, this is the truth of Berlusconi. Forget about this spectacle, did he sleep with that stupid Ruby girl or whatever. The point is what is happening in the power structure. It reminds me, I think, if there was a really ingenious film of the last decades, it was that one by the